I'd like to talk about an umbrella project that I've been working on for a while called Coaling the Iron County. The focus of this project is the charcoal makers of the historic iron industry of 19th century Clarion County, Pennsylvania. As archaeologists, we're all familiar with charcoal as a fuel. It's been used in metallurgy, domestic heating, and cooking since antiquity. Indeed, in Europe, there are relic charcoal hearths that have been dated to 3,000 years ago. Charcoal is produced by controlled combustion. It's essentially carbonized wood. It's high value because it produces clean, intense heat that's important for smelting quality iron and other metals. It's also easy to transport. It's about a third the weight of wood and about half of wood's volume. One con is in its production. It's time and labor intensive to produce and requires expertise. In the 18th and 19th century, charcoal was the predominant fuel for iron furnaces in eastern North America. In this wonderful image here from National Park Service on the left, we see a cold blast, water-powered charcoal iron furnace with varied workers assuming their tasks. The charcoal iron furnace workers were diverse. They ranged anywhere from the iron masters and the furnace managers and the guttermen and molders that worked in and around the furnace to those people who worked out on the landscape, particularly the teamsters that moved ore and charcoal across the landscape, the ore miners who provided the raw material for smelting, the wood choppers who provided wood to the colliers, and the colliers who produced the charcoal that fueled the furnace. As a landscape archaeologist, I'm primarily interested in those people who worked on the landscapes, particularly colliers. So who were these colliers? If you get into the literature, you'll find that there's really not that much information about them. And in fact, a lot of what you'll read is just plain old romantic, like these two quotes here. It is an ancient craft, that of the charcoal burners, providing a picturesque and free life. For these men spend the greater part of their time far from the haunts of men, deep in the heart of the woods. Mary Fair in 1907. Cecil Bining, who was a historian of the Pennsylvania iron industry, wrote, "The bleak and lonely charcoal burners' huts were built in the silent forest, far away from the plantation community." This individual that you see in this image on the right is Lafayette Huck. He was the last collier of the Hopewell Furnace, and he was a very important person in terms of chronicling the art of charcoal making as it occurred in the 18th and 19th centuries of eastern North America. I'm going to focus on Clarion County, Pennsylvania, which had the nickname the Iron County in the 1800s, primarily because it was perhaps the most productive of the 6 counties in the northwestern Pennsylvania iron region in terms of pig iron. 31 furnaces were in blast in rural Clarion County from 1829 to 1890. 28 of those were fueled by charcoal from 1829 to 1882, spanning about 54 years. Others were fueled by coke or coal. The peak years of the Clarion County iron industry were 1849 to 1851, when all 28 charcoal furnaces were in blast. The average years a charcoal furnace was in blast in Clarion County was 16.1 years. The greatest decline in the industry was from 1852 to 1859 for various and sundry factors. And as you can see in this graphic on the right, the iron industry of Clarion County exhibited a classic boom and bust industrial cycle. So, as I said, Coaling the Iron County focuses on the colliers of Clarion County. And I asked 3 important questions about the colliers and where they worked. Was who were the colliers of Clarion County and where did they come from? Were they local recruits? Were they itinerant workers from other iron regions? Or were they foreign-born laborers that were brought in by iron masters to fill labor voids? How did the colliers of Clarion County respond to the boom-bust cycle of the county's iron industry, as we saw in that previous graphic? Did they transition to new occupations or continue their craft elsewhere? And where did the colliers work in the landscape? Is there evidence for the work of colliers in terms of relic charcoal hearths in the landscapes of Clarion County today? For example, this gentleman here, Conrad Brinkley, was a collier in the 1850 census. Where did he work? A key component of data for this particular project was the US Census data from 1850 to 1880. And here's a little section of what you might see were you to open the 1850 census for Clarion County, Pennsylvania. Here in Monroe Township, there was a gentleman named David Edelblut. He was a collier. He's aged 48 years. He was born in Pennsylvania, had a wife and 7 children, including inferred son William. It doesn't say on this census whether he is actually his son or not. In later censuses, relationships in households are elucidated, but not in 1850. Edelblut also owned $250 worth of real estate. So good personal demographic information. This census data, I transcribed all that vital data from censuses for Clarion County colliers and created a database using Ancestry.com records. I tracked identified colliers through censuses, essentially chasing colliers through time. Conducted a quick tally of collier data for the northwestern Pennsylvania iron region, including Armstrong, Butler, Lawrence, Mercer, and Venango counties for comparison to trends in Clarion County. Collier demographics, numbers across censuses. Clarion County dominated the northwestern Pennsylvania iron region in total numbers of identified colliers in 1850, 279, which was over 60% of the total collier workforce in northwestern Pennsylvania. Clarion County collier census cohorts showed a negative exponential decline across censuses, which was consistent with the decline in furnaces. And you can see that in the graphic here on the right. The regional decline without the Clarion County data is a little less abrupt, particularly from 1850 to 1860, but a decline nonetheless. What about the age of colliers? For Clarion County, the average collier age in 1850 was 28.8 years, a relatively young workforce, and increased significantly in subsequent censuses. For example, 1860, the average age of Clarion County colliers went up to 35.3 years. In 1870, 41.3 years of age. This is because collier cohorts increased in age as fewer young workers were recruited into the collier ranks. This was a dying profession at the time, at least for workers associated with iron furnaces. And the regional trend was similar, as can be seen in this graphic to the right. What about the birthplaces of Clarion County colliers? The majority of Clarion County colliers, almost 90%, were born in Pennsylvania or adjacent states. The colliers of Clarion County were predominantly white and male and born in Pennsylvania, again, over 80%. Most were heads of households with multiple member families. Few owned real estate or had personal estates. And these trends were similar across census states for Clarion County and the region. So why care about collier birthplace? In 18th century New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, colliers were sometimes brought in from abroad to fill labor gaps for iron furnaces, particularly bringing in qualified, trained colliers to an area that really lacked that type of labor force. This also occurred in the Salisbury Iron District in Connecticut in the 19th century. And this image on the right shows a group of immigrant colliers and their families from Cornwall, Connecticut, somewhere between 1870 and 1880. The census data for the Salisbury Iron District shows that many of those colliers were originated from France. So they were brought in to augment the local workforce. Then there's this question, did the isolation of Clarion County at the time, all the way in western Pennsylvania, affect recruitment of workers such that it was just a local pool of people that assumed the collier role? And this is something that Karen Knowles mentions in her book, Mastering Iron, that these iron hamlets at the time were isolated and they tended to be ethnically homogeneous. And I followed that idea at the time as well, until I started working on census data for iron miners in the Clarion County iron industry. And I found that they were very ethnically diverse. In fact, 2/3 of the miners of 1850 were foreign born, largely Irish and German. So isolation probably is not completely a factor that explains why Clarion County colliers were primarily homegrown. What about occupational transitions of colliers in response to the industry's decline? Well, most colliers of the 1850 census cohort transitioned into farming as an occupation once they were done with colliery, either in Clarion County or somewhere else by 1860. As you can see from this graphic on the right, depicted by the gray bar, the farmer occupation was a relatively stable occupation over time. Thus, when colliers became farmers, they stayed farmers. Others became general laborers, wood choppers, and ore miners, and very few colliers stayed in the trade for more than one census date. As you can see from the black bars here, the collier occupation declined dramatically over time. We can put a face on some of these changing occupations of Clarion County colliers, and here's two examples. To the left is William Barrett and his family. William was a Clarion County collier in 1850 and an ore digger in 1860 and farmer in 1870, both in Armstrong County, which is adjacent to Clarion County. To the right is Samuel Heller and his lovely wife. He was a collier in 1850 and became a farmer for the rest of his life in Clarion County. There's also some evidence in the census records for movement of colliers from one iron-producing region in Pennsylvania to another. And this is actually census data from Mercer County, Pennsylvania, that I've also been working on, and that's a county in the northwestern Pennsylvania iron region. And this is the family of Isaac L. Thomas, who was a collier in 1850 in Mercer County. Isaac was born in 1790 in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Now, what's unusual about this particular census entry is that the census enumerator not just listed Pennsylvania as the birthplace, but the county in Pennsylvania as a birthplace. So you can actually track movements of colliers by virtue of where their children were born. For example, Isaac Thomas, as I said, was born in Chester County, Pennsylvania, which was an iron-producing region. So it's likely he learned the collier trade there. His wife, Mary Ann, was born in Huntington County, Pennsylvania, which is at the heart of the Juniata Valley Iron region. So perhaps Isaac was working there as a collier and met his wife. Their first daughter was born in Center County, Pennsylvania, again, in the Juniata, Central Pennsylvania Iron producing region. Their second daughter was born in Ohio. We have no county data for that, but it's a good possibility that if Isaac was continuing as a collier, he was working in the Hanging Rock Iron District of Ohio. And then finally, and most relevant to Clarion County, is the birth of Lucinda Thomas, who was 10 years old in 1850. So she was born in Clarion County in 1840. And indeed, I tracked Isaac Thomas down to Paint Township in Clarion County in 1840. Interestingly, there were two furnaces in blast in Paint Township during that time period, and one was Lucinda Furnace. So I wonder if Isaac worked for Lucinda Furnace as a collier and actually named his daughter after the furnace. There's also evidence for movement of Clarion County colliers to other iron-producing regions in Pennsylvania and elsewhere. 18 Clarion County colliers from the 1850 and 1860 censuses relocated to work as colliers in 4 other states and 11 counties, including several different iron-producing regions. In this map here, Clarion County is depicted in red. Some movements occurred in the northwestern Pennsylvania iron region to different counties adjacent to Clarion County. There was movement to the east to the central Pennsylvania Juniata Valley Iron region, to the southwest to the Hanging Rock Iron region in Ohio, even further west to the Iron Mountain Iron region of Missouri, and then finally to the south to the southern interior iron region of Tennessee. Where did the colliers work in the landscape? I use LiDAR to assess the potential to identify relic charcoal hearths in a particular area of the Shippenville Furnace. The Shippenville Furnace is a wonderful place because there's public land there. The forest has been maintained probably since the iron industry collapsed in 1859 in that particular area. I employed ground surveys to confirm or refute putative relic charcoal hearths identified by LiDAR, and then map the location and document the architecture of confirmed relic charcoal hearths found during ground surveys. Now, I previously gave a talk on the LiDAR work for the SIA Online series, episode 6, and here's the URL if you would like to see that. So I'm not going to jump into this LiDAR data in any great detail. However, the relic charcoal hearths sort of fit into the scheme of things as we understand in terms of architecture. 13.5 meters in diameter. They were circular oblong platform morphology made by a cut and fill type of construction. They were largely located on gentle slopes and plateaus. And this image here to the right shows all the confirmed relic charcoal hearths that were found in the vicinity of the Shippenville Furnace. So, Clarion County Colliers, some conclusions. First off, the demographics of Collier cohorts in Clarion County and Northwest Pennsylvania iron region are generally consistent with a boom-bust industry. Colliery in Clarion County was probably a reaction to economic opportunity that was dropped into a rural economy by the iron industry. The collier population was mostly homegrown Pennsylvania by birth, and most colliers in Clarion County found other occupations after 1850. Few continued coaling either in Clarion County or elsewhere, and they assimilated into the rural mixed economy of the region as farmers and laborers, etc. And finally, relic charcoal hearths have been confirmed and quantified for Shippenville Furnace, and we are able to provide a linkage of collier demographics to actual archaeological sites on the ground. And this image here to the right shows the shrinking collier landscape of Clarion County, Pennsylvania, as the iron industry began to wane. Well, I thank you for your time, and I will entertain any questions that you might have. And this is what my dog thinks of archaeology. Thank you.